Hello, welcome to the Critical Obsession podcast. My name is Mirella,
And I'm Zoe.
and today we're going to react to and talk about the series that brought the two of us together. Not me.
Not me, yes.
I'm so happy. I've been waiting for this for such a long time.
I know, right? It's so funny, like I love this show so much and I hope I'll be able to articulate why. Like, but it'll be so disappointing to me if I can't like make other people understand why I love this show so much.
Yes, there's a reason why we compare everything to Not Me.
Yeah, I mean, I have to really say, even as much as I've loved some of the newer stuff we've been watching, I feel like Not Me is still the standard for me. Like, it just is. I think it's because it's so different from like other Thai BLs anyway, that it kind of sets itself apart just because of that alone. Um, and even just my experience in regards to watching it, like Not Me was the show that made me create a Twitter account purely and simply for BL. And I had been a BL watcher, casual BL watcher, and casual bubby for many years. Up until like Not Me started airing, and it never would have occurred to me before I started watching this to ever get as immersed in the fandom and I guess the culture of BLs the way I have in the last couple of years. Like this is such a it was unexpected, and hey, and then eventually we birthed a podcast from it.
Yeah, for me as well. I was not a casual BL watcher. I was just trying stuff out, but nothing really uh, managed to impress me up to the moment I started watching them. Yeah, I started watching it and I was like, oh, I'll just give it a go. Who cares that it's an ongoing? I'm gonna drop it anyway. But oh god, I got obsessed. I wanted to talk to someone about it.
Yeah, that is what prompted me to create my Twitter in actual fact, because there was two facets to it. Like Not Me was one of those shows as well that fans had been waiting for a really long time, and not just um because of COVID put a delay on it, but also like it was actually meant to be made before Theory of Love. So, or like at least it had been sort of lined up for them before Theory of Love. And Pinucci was like, no, you boys aren't ready for this yet. And instead we got Theory of Love, which is like great. I'm glad. But and then of course we got the GMM reveals for new shows back in, oh my god, don't ask me years because
I don't know.
I'm
I
about
was
to say
not present for all that.
I'm gonna say the wrong year, but it was like the previous year to when it actually ended up airing. And I remember the original pilot trailer, and it was like the original pilot trailer, I was like, wow, okay. And I remember having the same kind of reaction to the original pilot trailer that I had a bit to the original pilot trailer for Dangerous Romance. I was like, wow, this is different, like, and it was so funny because I didn't watch the trailer. Um, you know how GMM has their special, like, shows where they reveal all the trailers and that. I didn't actually see the Not Me pilot on that. I think I watched it like the next day or something. It came up on my, on my play like, recommended plays or whatever on YouTube. And so initially in the very beginning, like it didn't really kind of register me that it was off gun. Like I obviously Gun is very recognizable. They're both very recognizable and everything, but it kind of just like I was watching it and I recognized Gun, of course, but I mean obviously they do things separately and whatever. And it was just I'm watching it and I was like so kind of enthralled with it and stuff. And then I was just like, wow, this is gonna be really good. I'm like, he's playing twins, right? Like I remember being like, wow, okay. And like showing it to my mum because my mum loves Off Gun as well. And we were both like, oh, this is excellent. We can't wait. Fast forward like almost 2 years later, and eventually it started airing. And I remember I started watching it as it started airing, which is not something I'd ever done before with an off-gun show. I think Theory of Love, I started watching it when it was about, it was airing, because I remember there was some drama on Twitter. People were like tagging off like as if he was Kai. uh, and telling him to stop being mean to Gun, essentially. But I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't overly in the fandom, so I didn't really, I saw things on the peripheral, of my normal Twitter account. And but I think I started watching that sort of kind of like maybe 2/3 of the way. Like, there was already, a good maybe 8 episodes or something had already aired before I realized it was actually on. I was like, oh no, this is happening. So I, started watching it. With Not Me, I was like, I had been hanging out for so long, and I was just like, oh my God. And I've become a child of instant gratification, and so, like, I'm not a
Mhm.
huge fan with, like, as you said, ongoing shows, which is funny because when we're doing the podcast, we're watching several ongoing shows as they're airing. But in the past, I've
It's
gotten
just
to that
such a
stage.
risk. It's a risk.
It's part of the fun, right? Like, as well. And it's like, but with, becoming, being these, like, I guess, children of I say children, but I'm an adult, but you know what I mean. The like, of the generation of, instant gratification with all the streaming sites and all that, where you can just be like, oh, I think I'll watch 9 seasons of, like, whatever today, because you can, like. So it's pretty rare that I would go, oh yeah, I might, at this time, like when Not Me was airing, it was pretty rare for me to be like, oh, I'm going to start watching this and wait week to whatever. And honestly,
Mhm.
I didn't think it would be that stressful. I was like, I said to Mum, we should watch this. And she said to me, oh, no, I'm going to wait until it's finished. And she was already watching some other stuff. And I went, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I've been waiting for it. I'm just going to watch it. So fast forward to like 3 or 4 episodes in, and I'm having a mental breakdown because, like you, I needed to talk to somebody. And so, like, I'm lurking on Twitter, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to talk to my group chats for, like, because my main Twitter is a K-pop Twitter, right? Okay. And so I'm trying to talk to my poor K-pop girlies about Type BL, which, they're probably not that interested in. And at the time, although I've made them all except for one watch Not Me.
Mhm.
Carol, I will get you later. But I just was like, I need to talk to people. And, I was talking to my friend about it like every day, and I'm thinking, she's gonna, like, tell me to shut up any minute now. And it was unsatisfying. It was unsatisfying because I couldn't get the
The-
feedback because they didn't really know what I
yes.
was talking about. Like, you couldn't experience, you needed to have experienced Not Me to be able to understand why I was dying. So as I said, I started lurking on Twitter more and more. And then I was like, oh, I kept seeing there were all these, like little chats going up after the episodes
Mhm.
and stuff, like little live group things and that. And I was like, oh, that's it.
Mhm.
I'm going to have to make a, like a Twitter for Not Me, which is what I did. And so then I started lurking in these little group discussions. And for me, it was like, because first off, there's a bunch of things. Not Me was airing on a Sunday, which means it's quite late for me when things finish. And so I would be 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning listening to, like, a bunch of people, like, dissecting the episode and whatever. And I'd be going, oh my God, I want to join in, but I did not know anybody and was afraid. And so I just lurked and lurked and lurked. And I was like, no, this is not working. I need to talk to people. And because I was new on that side of Twitter, I didn't know anybody. I couldn't just, like, start having a conversation with somebody. I could make random crazed posts, which I think I did. But I couldn't, like, have a conversation because I had nobody. So I basically cornered my mother and was like, you must watch this now. I cannot, like, I was legit like, I cannot do this alone. And she just kept laughing at me. She's like, this is the funniest thing ever. I'm like, you do not understand. Anyway, so I managed to, I managed to convince her to watch it with me. And of course, I was already 4 episodes in at this point. And I said to her, I'll rewatch more with you, that's right. And so we watched the 4 episodes and we were like, had lots to talk about. And then I managed to convince her, I think the weekend of, like, the 5th episode or something like that. Or it was the weekend of
Mm.
the 4th, I'm not sure. Anyway, so we watched that episode. And then suddenly I had dragged her into this pit of, like, crazed obsession with me where suddenly you are wishing your week away, you're wishing your weekend away because
Yes,
you just wanted Sunday
your
to
life
happen
away.
already. And you were like, we had so many theories, and we like, she would ring me at work, like when she got up on the Monday at about like lunchtime, and she would be like, oh, I just had this thought. And we'd spend my lunch break having a, X amount of minute conversation, pulling apart and having all these, and we had some crazy theories, and hopefully I'll remember some of them while we're doing the podcast, because some of them were hilariously funny now that I think back at them, but they're also like, I feel like they were legitimate, yeah, this could be where they're going or something like that, but there were some funny ones. And but yeah, and so but then we got to a point where, it had raised the ante, I guess, on the stress level of like what is going to happen next on that week to week wait side of things. And she started to hate me a little bit because I had dragged her into the we had to wait a week before we knew what happened next. And yeah, but it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, and then I met some great people, of course, you specifically.
I I was completely alone. I was alone. I had no one I could drag into my insanity. It was so hard. It was so hard. I'm lucky that I started watching it when 7 episodes were already out, so I did not lose my mind for that long of a time. But I had no Twitter account. I had no social media that I could use. I didn't know, people translated things on Twitter. And when I get obsessed with something, I want to find more information about it. I want to watch interviews. I want to, read about the production, have like insights. And I could find nothing. Like I didn't know where everything was. And then I found out that everything was happening on Twitter when towards the end. So when I made my Twitter account, the series was already over. And like people already met each other, like went through stuff together, and I was just like, "Hello, I'm late to the party, but I'm here." So like I tried. I wanted to talk to someone, and I was speaking to people, but I couldn't make them watch it with me, and especially because um like in my personal life, I was a bit isolated. Like I didn't really have anyone to talk to, so in that period of time. And I there were the comments, of course, on the YouTube videos, but you cannot really talk with people there. And so then I made my Twitter account and I started reading what people were saying because I was still interested. I kept being excited about this show and obsessively rewatching every everything, like for a year probably.
Well, I think
And
that was the atmosphere on Twitter though as well, wasn't it? Like, because I remember, I think I posted more after the show had finished than while it was actually airing. Because while it was airing, I was just like, but when afterwards, I was like, I have so much to say.
yeah,
And so I think that was the vibe. Like all like people who love Not Me, and not just Bubby, but people who love Not Me and Bubby were just like, for a good year plus almost. I mean, even now, every now and then I'll log in and there'll be like a big onslaught of like Not Me stuff. And I'm just like, I'm so glad that no one has forgotten this, because this makes me happy every time I see it. But yeah, so as you were saying, like you were still talking about it like a year later.
yeah, I was mostly reading. I'm not much of a talker when I
Mm.
have to like speak into nothingness. Like Twitter was very a weird experience for me. It was very new, so I didn't really know how to handle it. I was very
Mm.
awkward. And then I read some of your tweets and I remembered you. I followed you. And then at some point, I remember you mentioned something about Dorian Gray. I was like, yeah, it's time. And I was like, hello,
You were like, I found my people. She knows classic literature.
hello, let's be friends. And you're like, hi, of course.
I remember making the Dorian Gray comment because I know I've used that in reference to Off a bunch of times. Um but I don't know if that's what if it was if the original one was in reference to him or not. But
I think it
for
was.
those. Oh, okay. For those listening at home, I'm convinced that both Off and Gun have a Dorian Gray style type painting somewhere because oh my god, do they look oh just oh as they get old
Yeah.
like time wide like what is happening like especially off like the older he's getting like I kind of need him to stop aging because I'm afraid of what's going to eventually happen like how what is going on he's just every year he gets older I like die a little bit more inside because I just can't deal with like how good looking he is. And I find myself like going, what is happening? I don't understand. And the only thing that makes sense is the Dorian Gray picture thing. Um, but yeah, so it was one of those. It was such a weird though, like time as well for me because, um, like you, I'd never really interacted with people, on Twitter about stuff like this. I said I never got so invested. Um, or if I had been a little bit like, I mean, I know like I loved Theory of Love. As I said, I'd loved Off Gun for a long time, but not in a like I didn't really, you know, follow everything they did. I will say well I will admit to I obsessively do now. But I I didn't have the high dependency relationship that I have with Ocon back then. But I was aware of like, as I said, when things was airing and stuff like that. But it was mainly like um contained to like just because I knew things were happening because I saw like trailers on YouTube or like whatever. Um so it was a weird experience for me too because I was just like um I don't know how to speak to people about this, but all I wanted to do was speak to people about Not Me. And like you,
Yeah.
I wanted to devour everything. There was a lot of interesting things, not just with like the acting and the show itself, but like Pinucci had a lot to say, and I found that fascinating. The music in this show was amazing. I went on a weird for those
Yes.
who listened to our Let's Talk Last Twilight podcast know that I am weirdly obsessive with music. When I find something new that I like, everything becomes about that. Like I hear the characters or whatever in every song that I listen to and stuff like that. And so the fact that Not Me had such amazing
This
music
is
in it,
love. This is love.
it
Every
was
song that you
just
hear is about them.
yeah. I there was nothing there were no bad moments like in terms of like the music in this show, and it just there was so many layers and there was so much content creation going on as well
Yeah.
on Twitter for Not Me, like lots of um great edits and all that sort of stuff, and it was great. I loved it. um Even now, like people talk about a season 2 or a special episode, and it's been so long. But I feel like on my tombstone, it'll be like "Here she lies" kind of thing, still waiting for season 2 of Not Me.
I'm not waiting for season 2 of Not Me. I think it is it is perfect. It's good the way it is.
Yeah, it is definitely it's complete, and it ended in a very satisfactory manner. I'm just like I would have loved more because I just loved it, and I know, as I said, I feel like with like other shows where you get attached to characters and you think, oh, I'd like more, but as I said, you know that like eventually it'd get fucked up somehow or whatever. Because it's this weird phenomenon with shows where like I would really just love like one show where you get to see the characters like actually just have a relationship and be happy for a little while or whatever. I mean, they can have like little, ups and downs or whatever because that's what happens. But most shows, most movies, whatever, there's drama, 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 drama. They get together, a little bit of drama, maybe they break up, like whatever. They get together in the last like, quarter of the whatever, and then it ends. And it's like couldn't you have just shown me a little bit more? Like I I'm like that with a lot of dramas.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I just want to see them have like
It's
be
just that
together. I feel like people who create things like that, they don't think we want to see that. Like they think that that's boring, like day-to-day life or whatever is boring, but like a lot of people are starved for that. We just want to see like someone else live that and be happy or whatever. And so just, and once again, I'm just talking about dramas in general. And so like you know, I often have this reaction to things where, like I think when we were talking about previous podcasts, I think I've said a couple of times, so I hope they don't end with like they get them back in the last 10 minutes or whatever, because I hate that. Um, and that's because, as I said, you feel like a little bit like you're left wanting because you didn't get to see them together enough or whatever. But then when you do get a drama or a movie or a show or like whatever, where they try and give you that, like it's like they don't know how to just let the characters be. They have to like try and create drama, and then they end up like ruining it or whatever. So like a lot of the times when you really like something and you think, oh, I would like more because I would like to see more of the characters or more of this storyline or whatever, you don't really trust the writers or the creators or whatever to actually be able to like follow through and give you that. I felt like with Not Me, I felt like I trusted Pinucci to do that for us. Like I felt like between Pinucci and Pinucci that we would be able to get more out there. Like they would be able to get more out of this, because this wasn't a show that was um here's a book based on, I think it was like a fan fiction or something like that. I don't really know exactly, but like here's a book that was written here, now just turn it into a show. Well, they didn't do that. They stripped it right back and basically rewrote this. Like the only things that are the same are like Sean and White and Black's names and the fact that they're twins. Pretty much everything else like different. And so they created this whole thing. So they had like obviously had ideas about things they wanted to do and all that. And it was really funny because as I was watching it, I was like, oh yes, it would be so good if we got more. And it wasn't so much about Sean and White or like anything like necessarily relationship wise. It was just like, I really liked this show and I wanted more of a show like this, and the idea of getting more of it was so exciting to me. In an interview, Pinucci was like, oh, when I ended it, I was thinking I could do this. And her response was not what I was expecting. So I trusted her, was like, should I trust you? But I do trust her. I think even it's like one of those things where I feel like even if I have such trust in her that I feel like even if I wasn't like, if she did something I didn't like, she would be able to convince me it was the right choice. Which is a pretty rare thing, I think. We get these ideas about, I mean, it's happened to us with the
You
podcast a
trust
couple of
their
times.
intelligence. You trust
Yeah.
their intelligence, and if you don't understand it, like if it doesn't make sense for you, you're just like, maybe I just don't understand something. Maybe I don't
Maybe I don't
have enough
understand it. Yeah. But
information.
yeah, but I feel like as well, but like, and that's pretty rare though for us to fully trust somebody like that, because we've had it a little bit with the podcast where we get to a point where we've got in our mind that this is the story they're telling us.
Mhm.
And unfortunately we've been burned a little bit where we're like, okay, so we didn't understand the story they were telling us. They were telling a different story,
Yeah.
but we are invested in our version.
Yeah.
And that is a dangerous thing to happen. But it is also part of the joy of it. Now, the good thing about us doing this Not Me rewatch, is I think we both agree that it's been long enough that since we watched it, that we're both super
Yes.
excited to do a rewatch, um, to do it together, but also like we just want to talk about it some more. So we thought
And
we'd
we have
share
a
it with
podcast, and
everybody.
we cannot not talk about it.
Exactly. Like, look, we can't do a podcast where we occasionally talk about BLs and not talk about Not Me, because that would just be like a travesty, honestly. And especially because we refer to it so much as like a benchmark when we're talking about other
Yes.
BLs. We are comparing it very heavily to Not Me. And it's not to say there aren't some flaws in Not Me. There are definitely some things that I,
We
will
are
come up
we
and
are going to be critical
yeah. As much as
with
I love
laws and
this show,
everything.
as much as I said, I'm so impressed with the acting, the script writing, the cinematography, the direction, like everything was the music, everything was amazing. There are still flaws. There are always going to be flaws. There's characters I don't really like. I'm probably going to say a couple of things that's going to upset some people. I'm like, hey, it's a day ending in Y, it happens. But so like it was such an immersive experience for me in such a weird way that I like it was the start. It was the start of this insanity that we're doing with the podcast.
Yes. So we're going to react as we usually do to the four parts of the episodes. And then we're going to talk some more about the episode, and we're probably going to split the podcast for each episode into two parts and post them on our normal schedule. So, should we proceed with the
Part
first
one.
part of episode
Yeah,
one?
part one. Let's do it. I'm so excited.
No.
Excellent. Let's do this. Part one of
Part
four.
one.
Wow. Like straight away,
I'm pretty,
as soon as it started, I was like, the theme. I was like, oh my God, I forgot how much I loved hearing that.
I'm pretty sure I had a very creepy smile on my face when we introduced it. So it starts with a mirror covered with steam. And White approaches the mirror. He cannot see his reflection, so he has to run his hand over the mirror. And he tells us how it must be unsettling for most people to see someone who looks just like them. But for him, it's a special feeling that actually means having a twin.
Fafen. It's comforting to him.
Yeah, and like the visual of him not being able to see himself, and like they use mirrors a lot in this series.
Mm,
It's just the first time, and um, it's I find it interesting that at first he doesn't see himself, and then he can see himself, and you get the feeling like it's clear that he's thinking about his twin right now. He's in the bathroom where it's an intimate place. It's a place where you usually are alone, but
mm,
this loneliness doesn't feel natural to him.
mm. And it's interesting too, like there is definitely this is gonna be such an interesting uh reaction, I think, from for us, because it's going to be too, we have to, I guess, kind of be a little bit mindful of the fact that people may be joining us who haven't seen the show, and so we don't want to give too much away in case you're watching as you're listening, or listening as you're watching. um or maybe you're in the middle of watching, not me, and you've just stumbled upon this podcast, and so we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but at the same time, it's going to be very hard not to, because we have the insight of, we've already seen it, so we know sometimes where, like when I first watched this, it did not occur to me. I kind of saw it a bit the way you just talked about it then, but there is actually also some foreshadowing here, because White doesn't see himself clearly. Like, he doesn't see his life clearly in the beginning of this show. Like, he's not aware of his situation. Um, he
He's been
becomes,
focusing on other things. He's been
yeah,
focusing on um like a
he's
bit
kind of,
egoistical stuff, like his
yeah,
relationship with his father, the way he sees himself, like individualistic stuff, but
yeah.
not
But
really thinking
yeah,
about his position in the society and
no,
what he
and
can do about it.
that's right. And the thing is he's somewhat been isolated, because he is, even though he's worldly, he's traveled, he's lived in another country and all the rest of that, he's been isolated in a way, and very much shaped, um to grow up this way. Like, he's definitely, like, we see it a lot in
Sheltered,
literature and it shows in that he is definitely been, oh my God, what's the word?
grooming,
Oh my God.
groomed.
Yes, grooming. He's been groomed to take this position, to have this life. He has been groomed to become his father, essentially. But he is very unaware of that. He just thinks he is a good son, I think, essentially.
And then we have
Uh,
him thinking about the boy swimming, remembering
yes.
his childhood with Black. Black is his brother. They're white and black. And
Yeah.
so
Before we go on to that, the first of even as the kids, the casting in this show is done so well. Um, and I need to say, because at the beginning of this, they're at the pool, as you said, with the two twins and their friend Todd and the parents. And for people joining us who also watched Cooking Crush, yes, You are correct. Ten's dad is also White and Black's dad. In the small world of GMM, they share a father. Um, the the twins' name is so interesting, isn't it? Because this like White is even in this beginning part, we're starting to see this forming. White is being shown to be the good twin. Black we
The
start to see
innocent
is
one.
yeah, Black we start to see is the disappointment, the bad twin. And it's interesting because it's like old school lore and literature where like, you know, you have your white hats and your black hats, like they were
Mhm.
represented in that way. Like especially like in old westerns and stuff, you knew a character was bad if they had a black hat. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
interesting the names. Or you know that whole idea of like the black sheep of the family, like the
yeah,
one
yeah.
who disrupts the peace and the normality of the group. And yeah, it's really, really interesting. And in this beginning bit, we're introduced to what is, I guess, a huge part of the story, which is this twin connection. Um, and it's a phenomenon that, like,
What I also find interesting is that they say White loses again, and he is 3 seconds behind, and it shows us right away that Black is a bit faster than him. He is faster
mm,
to adjust to the circumstances. He is just faster to understand and see things differently.
yeah, and even later on when we see them again, you get the impression that he's a little bit smarter as well. Like he's quicker on his feet. He's like, there's definitely a difference between them, but it doesn't seem like, although even though White is like, come on, let's go again kind of thing. I think I can beat you. It's not that serious. You know what I mean? Like he's not
I don't think
desperate.
he's necessarily smarter than White. It's just that White takes his time. Black rushes through things. He gets
When I say when I
he
say when I say smarter, I don't mean like more intelligent. I just mean like you used the word innocent before,
Mhm.
um and sheltered, and I mean in that respect like black is, even like we see a scene, in the little like a few minutes after this scene, where they're meant to be like even younger, and it is very clear that Black is more aware and more quick on his, he's bolder, he's braver, he's whatever. He's less
Mhm.
sheltered. Like he's straight away, he's something has happened to him, or he's automatically, his worldview or whatever is less innocent. Like
Yeah.
he's this little kid, and you can see that there's a skeptic in him already, kind of thing. Like it's
So he's a bit older and he kind of takes responsibility, and it makes him a bit more mature. But I also
yeah,
find
well,
it's interesting how he says, just give up, White, which is like something that give up on society, give up on hope, give up on hoping that you will, succeed. And White says no. And he just goes on practicing
mm.
swimming.
It's interesting too because like as you said, like Black is a little bit older, but they're twins, so the age difference would be minutes at best. And it's funny because White calls Black P, even though as if
Yeah.
there'd be seconds or minutes difference. But the fact that he calls him P is such a great representation of their relationship dynamic. Like there's this like older brother, younger brother respect there.
Yeah.
There's as you said, the fact that it's more like he's more worldly, more knowledgeable, more whatever for like the few seconds or minutes. But Black clearly takes that role seriously. He is White's protector.
And
It's
Todd is
very
there
interesting.
observing them. Todd.
Yeah, Todd.
and then
Todd's their best friend.
and then Black goes away and White continues swimming and he has a cramp. And yeah, you started then we get basically a manifestation of this phenomenon of
The twin
when
connection.
yeah, the twin connection.
Mm.
Go on,
It's
you want to.
this is a very interesting thing, the twin connection, because it's not really something that's quantifiable. I know there's been lots of studies done on it and things like that. Um, and it's one of those things like you either believe it or you don't. It's like whatever, and how
Mhm.
the extremes of it work and all the rest of it. But I um am friends with, I don't see them much these days, but growing up, really close friends with a set of twins, and they were what are they, not identical but fraternal twins. And it was interesting because usually it's identical twins, I think, that tend to have the twin connection. But my friends, they had something. It was really interesting. Like, I remember we would be playing or something, and it was interesting when there was two, you're playing with both of them, but they were such different personalities. And you would sort of be like, maybe two, you would end up, two of you would go off and do something, and the third one would still, you'd still be all playing or whatever, but they would be doing something else. I remember there was an instance, we had been playing in the backyard, and then my friend and I went in the front yard for some reason, I don't know why, and we had left the other twin in the backyard, and all of a sudden, um my other friend sort of just jumped up from where we were sitting on the lawn, and ran around the back, and as she was running, she said, something's happened to, our friend. And there was no calling out, there was nothing, she just knew. Like, she when I asked her about it later on, I mean, we were about like 8 or 9 or something at the time, and when I asked her about it later on, I remember her saying to me that she just knew that something was wrong, and she had fallen and broken her arm. So
Mhm.
it was like, so this, I've seen it kind of, I guess, in action. I mean, and maybe that's just a, I don't know, it was weird. Maybe she just had it, maybe it was an intuition thing, maybe she just had a bad feeling, or like whatever, or it had been too long, without her sister being nearby, or I don't know. But it was definitely, growing up, and also, studying a little bit about the twin phenomenon and stuff like that, I remembered that moment, and thought, like, so many things we don't understand about science and the way the body works and all that. This is definitely something that is something, it is an interesting idea, and it was interesting to see them put it in the show, and how it all works, and it's quite an integral part of the story. So we get like a first hand, I guess, look at how it works for them, because, as you said, White wants to continue racing, and Black's like, if you can beat Todd, then I'll race you again, sort of thing. And so, Todd and White start swimming. Well, White starts to get a cramp, and then he starts drowning, and of course Black, who's having a shower at the time, also collapses, as if he is the one drowning. Um, so we start to see this, and the parents, and this is how we find out that the parents split up, and then they took a kid each, which I cannot imagine doing in a million years, being a parent and splitting your twins like that. I can't think of anything more cruel, actually.
Yeah.
But also, like, how do you choose? Like, what is the, I mean, I feel like the mother took a Black because she
Maybe she
thought
thought
he was going,
White was easier to handle, and that's why she kind of
I
gave him to the dad.
yeah, I think she thought maybe White might be passively useless, and that's kind of sound a bit harsh, but I feel like Black, she may have seen his, mm, I
Potential.
don't want to use intelligence, but yeah, his potential. Like, if Black had been moldable the way White was, then he would have been the perfect son for the mother. But he wasn't. Like, she couldn't control him, and that's where it all sort of went to, goes to, wherever. But, like, it's interesting because how do you choose? Like, that's such a weird thing. And then I don't understand this idea of, like, no connection. Like, I get them trying to take them away from each other, because they it's like they have this idea that if they put distance, like physical distance between them, that it will cancel out this twin connection, which is what appears to have happened, because White tells us that it's been years that he's been living in Russia with his father, and he hasn't felt the twin connection with his brother, like, since basically they went to Russia. So there's this idea that, like, the further they are away from each other, um that, um this connection is weakened, so that it can't hurt them. Like, the parents seem to have used the danger between having them close as an excuse to split them. And it's interesting because the father, when he's asked, like, White asks him about his mother and about his brother, and his father's like, I don't know, I don't care, kind of thing. They live their own lives, we live ours, which is so weird. But anyway, um it's interesting because it's almost like the father has this idea that the out of sight, out of mind thing will also have helped to decrease, the twin bond. But it's very clear from the first seconds of the show that although the twin connection has been lost, there's distance there. He hasn't spoken or seen his brother since he was like 10 or 11 or something. That he's never forgotten him. Like it's a constant hole missing in his soul, kind of.
The fantastical connection is gone, but the brotherly connection is still there.
Mm, yes, exactly. And so because they're twins, there's this connection that's beyond, I think, what normal people can quite understand. Like, you can be really close with your siblings, but I feel like, yeah, I mean, it's just different. I feel like it would have to be different. Like you were roommates for a long time, 9 months. But yeah, it's interesting because we get White go in, we see the girlfriend, and the girlfriend just cracks me up. I remember when this
But
show
before
started.
that, before that, White is in. While he remembers all that, we go back to him,
Oh yeah, yeah.
um, and he is submerged in the water, in the bathtub
Mm,
water, and this is something that actually happens again. And I feel like this is his way of trying to reach out to Black, because that's what happened in his memory.
yeah.
This is how that connection manifested, but
Do you know
nothing
what?
happens.
I'm gonna make a Twilight reference because this
John?
scene and later on totally reminded me of the scene in Twilight when Edward
Oh,
leaves and Bella keeps putting
yeah,
herself in danger to try and get his
yeah,
attention. It's
yeah.
almost like this is what White is trying to do here, because it's like when he was in
But
danger or
rather
something
to
like
feel the
that.
connection
Yeah, to feel it. Yeah, that's
in
right.
Twilight.
To have that connection again. But yeah, I remember actually when I was watching this, I was like, if you I don't know if you do this, but I totally do this. If I watch something by myself and I have no one to talk about, I'm like sitting here and I'm having a conversation with myself. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's so Twilight. No, not in this bit, like, but like when it happens later on, I was just like, and luckily enough, I actually wasn't by myself. I was watching it with mum, and she just like started laughing because she knew what I was talking about. But it's yeah.
So,
So
so he's in
yeah,
Russia and he goes back to the bedroom and his girlfriend is waiting for him.
I remember what I was gonna say with this bit is I remember when this first aired and people lost their mind about the fact that there was a girlfriend in the beginning of this, and it's so funny because she serves actually no purpose in the story really, except to show you like how little he actually gave a crap about her, and like how different White's relationship with Sean is, because literally as soon as she's out of sight, it's like she never existed. Like he never mentions her. He doesn't warn her. He's forgotten her by the time he like sets foot in Thailand. Like he's just like she ceased to exist. It's like, girlfriend, what? Um,
What I get from here, because he says, "I know you don't want to break up with me," and it's like he's trying to reason with her, and I feel like this is him clinging to this um, freedom that he had while he lived by himself, because he doesn't want the future that his dad set for him. He goes along with it, but he doesn't really want it. This is this is not where his heart is.
mm. But he's also not concerned with staying with her though either. That's not what he wants either. Like it's not. It's
Yeah,
very clear that
he doesn't
yeah,
say I don't want to leave you. He says I
yeah.
know you don't want to break up with me. Yes.
Yeah. But it's like he's just like, I think in this time he doesn't know what he wants. Like he's in this influx time, and when he gets together with his father, he gets back because he says his father went back to Thailand like 2 years ago. So he's been on his alone
Oh, he
like
says
on
he
his
doesn't
own.
want to go back to Thailand.
Yeah, he's had 2 years of like freedom, let's say. And so now he goes back, but it's like as soon as he goes back to where the father is, he does a little bit of, I guess, very low key, um uh where you like are trying to break out of bonds, rebelling, where he questions about like the connection with the mother and Black and stuff, and then he goes straight back to being like the perfect son for his father in this section of the show. But like before we do that, we see him um arrive back. Oh no, before that, sorry, before that, when he's talking to the girlfriend in the bed, she says to him, "Your future won't be hard. Your father has everything prepared for you." And it's like
Yeah.
this is a really interesting conversation for like what unfurls later on. And I remember the first time I watched it, I didn't really pay attention to it, but it was very evident to me when I was watching it this time. And so White arrives back in Thailand, and before he leaves, like at the end of the scene with the girlfriend, I'm just gonna. This is such a random thing. This is a random comment I'm gonna make just because I noticed it, and I was like, "What a shame." They focused on his suitcase and like this brown leather jacket with like reinforced like elbow pad, like elbow, things, and it like we never see White wear that jacket, and he would look really fine in it. And I'm just like super disappointed we never saw that jacket. But anyway, that's a weird thing, but I just noticed it. So he arrives back in Thailand, arrives back at his family childhood home, and meets up with his father. And he gets lost in a memory, this memory we were talking about, where they're even younger than the swimming pool memory. And it shows us that White was more cautious and Black was more daring. They're
But
riding
Black
bikes.
encouraged White
Yes,
to be
to
more
be brave.
daring.
Yeah, to be brave. And then when it goes wrong, because he encourages, it's interesting. He encourages White to be brave and to try like jumping with like jumping a stack of wood with his bike basically. And when it goes horribly wrong, he takes the blame for it and protects White because
It
essentially
takes
White,
responsibility,
yeah, he takes the
basically.
responsibility. That's right. And it's interesting though, because not only does Black is, as I said, is White more innocent, Black more daring, and Black encourages him to be daring. White also goes along with it. Like he's clearly not really doesn't want to do it, is a bit like, unsure or whatever, but he trusts his brother like
He
implicitly.
lets Black protect him.
Yeah, he just
He
stands
lets
there.
him
And
be his protector. Yeah.
that's right. And it's very obvious that the mother doesn't believe it when Black takes responsibility for it. Like there's this weird like moment between them. And it's like Black makes himself the villain to a certain extent
Yeah.
by lying. And it's very interesting because there's this memory that he's having when you look at the younger twins, like it's not a great memory, like obviously Black probably got into trouble for it, whatever. He looks like uncomfortable, whatever. But when White's remembering it, he's smiling because it's a good memory of, being with his brother protecting him, that feeling, that connection. It's like a really interesting scene in that respect. And then we get the little sang milk promo
Oh, but he also
product
says that
placement.
now that he's here, he feels like the connection is back again. He can
Yes.
feel it again.
Yeah, he's considering that maybe it's just, yeah, because he's back in Thailand. And so he asks about his mother and Black, and the father acts as though they've had no connection and he doesn't care, like either way. Um and
It's
then
been 10 years and has not been interested in where Black is, where the mother is, because she left him.
yeah, that's right, the
So
father. But I mean, I get the impression probably like in the beginning both the twins would have asked about each other, and then eventually it would have been one of those things where you just would have stopped asking because you didn't get the response that you wanted or whatever. Um So White is taken out to his father gives him a thing of soy milk and basically tells him that they're going to dinner later on. And so he's taken out to dinner with people who his father used to work with and who still work in the government. And we're told that White is really smart, and because of this he was able to graduate early. Um the one of the men who used to work with his father asks about his experience studying abroad, and he speaks about how his interactions with foreigners has given him like perspective and understanding of different cultures and personalities. And it's a very diplomatic answer, considering we just mentioned that like he would have had this freedom over there that he wouldn't have had when he was if he had studied at Thailand in Thailand with his father, right there and everything.
when he is asked, "Are you aware of the situation in Thailand?" I think that and his dad jumps right in to answer that. Yeah, he's been following the news and blah blah. I
Mm-mm.
think the answer is basically no, because if he does, his knowledge is probably superficial. Like he is maybe meant to be the character who introduces us to what's going on. Like we're finding things out through his eyes.
I think also it's
So
an
that's
interesting thing because I think he's aware, but he's aware of it. He's aware of what's going on, but in the from the
superficial
perspective,
way.
yeah, from the perspective that like understanding of it that his
From
father
from
wants him
the
to have.
Yeah, from the
Like the
perspective of privileged
yeah,
people.
like the propaganda, basically perspective. Like this is the story we're telling everybody. Okay, keep it straight. You know it,
Yeah.
right? You understand? Yeah. Like I feel like he
If you
understands
want a
that side of
position
it.
at the
Yeah,
ministry.
that's right. And so it's interesting because
And also, are
he
you aware of the situation in Thailand? Sounds like, are you aware of how things are done here?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. You haven't forgotten that we do stuff differently. Like just because you've been out there where it's all free love and happy, we're a little bit more, we have our own
Very long and
morals sort
happy
of thing.
Russia.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's funny because the other thing is, and because he, as I said, when he has the answer and it's very diplomatic, the comment he gets is that he would do well working for this man. And then his father mentions that he's about to apply for a role in the department as a diplomat. Um, and so help is then offered in the form of study materials and questions asked during previous application tests. Now, this is a huge privilege, obviously, that's not going to be available to all applicants. And he's also
Yeah.
given the outline of how the test will be laid out. So he's given
Hmm.
all this information that, like he's already met these people now know who he is. They know he's this person's son. And it's his father says, like, he goes on to mention how these people who are now in charge were once his trainees. So it's like it's it's so interesting because this conversation is so, like, veiled in, like, they owe me because they're where they are now because I gave them that opportunity. But it's also polite and very, like, cordial, and the way he's sort of like, oh, they were once my trainees
Welcome to
when,
the club. Welcome to the
yeah,
club.
that's right, and
Yeah.
how it easy I would be if you were to work with them. And the way White
Mm.
smiles here, it's like he seemingly does not notice what is going on, this underlying
Seems
conversation
like
that's
he's
happening.
detached. He's not even there.
No,
He
this
just
this
goes along with the
that's right.
situation. He's
This
not really
conversation,
leaving.
yeah, because it's like two levels of conversation. It's the conversation they're having, and then it's like the implied conversation between this
Hmm.
man and his father. This understanding that this is my son, you will take care of him, and the guy's going,
He
of
doesn't really
course.
care.
No,
He doesn't really care about anything. So it
that's
doesn't,
right.
maybe he's aware of what's happening, but it doesn't matter to him.
I
He
don't think
doesn't
he's
think it's
aware.
that
I don't think
important.
he's aware of it at all. Like, I think he's grown up in such a sheltered way that this is just how things are done. Like
You
he's
know, I
used
mean,
to.
when I mean aware, I mean like when you see things, but you don't really see them, you know?
Yeah, he doesn't understand the significance of what's going on in regards to society and how he fits into it.
And so then we
We
see
switch
Black
we switch to
run
Black,
from someone.
like, running for his life,
Yes.
and
And
then White's,
White's heart
yeah,
is racing,
racing, starting to react
and he
like he
doesn't
did when they
understand
were
why.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
He
interesting.
feels like a kid.
We see this scene here where I'm gonna say Gun, Black, runs into a motorcycle, like into a man riding a motorcycle. And, like, this might be a little known fact, and I'm pretty sure that this is how he got the scar on his knee that he hates, because I remember it was talked about, and it's like he ran into, in the first episode, he runs into a motorcycle. So I'm assuming it's that scene right there. Um, and yeah, so we see Black. He gets caught. He gets hit in the head with a piece of wood and beaten, and then we see White
And we
collapse
hear
for the
this
rest of
clock ticking sound. When we go back to White, White is losing conscious. He's feeling all the things
collapse.
Black is feeling. Yes, and
Yeah,
there's this ringing sound like in his ears.
yeah,
The sound that you hear when you hit your head.
yeah, and
Okay.
blood running out of his nose. So not only is he having, it's in this scene tells us, like, in the previous representation of their twinned connection, where it looked like Black was having this experience of drowning like White, they weren't giving him CPR or mouth to mouth or, like, whatever. They were only concentrating on White, and then once White was good, Black came back. In this instance, we get to see two things. The first thing we get to see is, because in the first instance something happened to White and Black reacted. What we see in this scene is not only that it's reversible. So in the original scene, we see, something happening to White, Black reacting. or being affected by it. And in this scene, we see something happening to Black, and White is also affected by it. The other thing we see is that White is not only emotionally, because you don't see the physical side of it in that when they're kids, like Black obviously is affected, like you see him kind of like coughing and choking, but it's not a visual representation really, because it's like drowning is like kind of, well, you can't see it, can you? But in this scene we see the blood, we see blood, like a physical reaction is actually, it's not just like a mental psychosomatic feeling thing. It's not like he's feeling the pain or he's whatever, he's actually experiencing it. So we see a physical representation of the blood coming out of
Not
his
to the
nose.
same, yeah, not to the same extent as Black,
No, no.
but
And it's
it's
interesting
still
too, because I mean this is this once again, like, I mean, it's a fictional drama, but like, if this was a true story, and this was something that happened, like, you can't test, this is not something you could quantifiably test, because to do it would be extremely cruel. But like, is this a distance thing? Like, if they were together, like if they were standing side by side and you beat the crap out of one of them, would the physical reaction and damage be similar, or is it like,
question. Yeah,
has distance
if they were
diluted it a little
standing,
bit?
if they were standing side by side, and you kill one of them, would the other one die as well?
Yeah, it's like a really interesting, and it's like you could never test it without actually like doing great harm to people, so you would never do that. But like, from a theoretical perspective, I did think about this when because my brain works in weird ways, especially when it comes to medical stuff and stuff like that. And I wondered, because as I said, we see the blood and everything, and I'm like, is this just because there's so much strain on his body, and so like he's popped a blood vessel, because that is definitely a medical thing that could have happened, or is this like, if he was a little bit closer, like the closer he is, the worse the damage is. um I would be very curious. This is going to be very interesting to kind of like, you know, investigate, but you can't without being a terrible human. But my brain definitely went there, because I was curious to see, like, I mean, from a fictional standpoint, you could make it whatever you wanted. And for a fictional standpoint, that would be an interesting thing, and it makes me think that probably would be the case. Like, if you had them to stand, side by side, back to back, whatever, and you punched the other, like one of them in the face, would they both be bruised in the same way the next day? Because we have no, but I know you're like, oh my god, so, but because, like, if you think about it, the distance between them when they separated them with an ocean was enough to stop the connection. You bring them back, and they're just being in the same country, it has opened the door again. If you were to put them like right next to each other, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just an interesting thought process. Anyway, or maybe I'm just a
Yeah.
weird person. I don't know. It's one of those things that I'm like, I would. It's like something that you could have you like, if they had done it. Oh, this is me going, if they had done a second season, it's something that you could have like explored like as a story theme, because this idea of like them wanting to be close and be together and everything, but like, you have to keep enough distance from that person in general, because you would be afraid that like, if you were together and one of you were to get hurt, then like, what happens there? So it's a, and is it worth, is the potential double trauma worth having that closeness and that relationship with someone that you love? Like, it's an
It is
interesting
worth it.
thought.
Of course, it
Of
is
course
worth
it is.
it. I
It
mean,
is. I mean, if you love that person, of course it's worth it. But it's like, it's just it would have been an interesting story, like arc or something. But anyway, I think, should we did you have anything else you wanted to say about the first part?
no, that's it. Let's go
Yeah.
watch the second part.
Yeah. I remember, as I said, I remember when I watched this first part, it was like, I was so intrigued. Like, I was so interested. And they did a good job of giving us such a lot of information and a lot of insight into the characters, that I didn't even realize until like, 2 episodes in, how much they'd actually given us in this like first, 15 minutes or whatever. So,
Lots of exposition.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, all right, part 2.
Part two.
Okay.
Part two? It's just part two?
It's just part 2. I'm like, Meryl is making fun of me because I took a really long time to come back after part 2. I'm like, I was making notes, okay? So, okay, all right, let's get into it. Okay, so we see White in hospital, and the doctor says that he can't find anything physically wrong with White. And I think it's so funny here because the father acts like dumb for a minute. Like he's like, oh, maybe it's the change in the weather, you know. He was in Russia, now he's in Thailand, which makes sense actually because from a medical standpoint, Russia is very cold and Thailand is very hot, and the heat stroke is a thing. But like, it wouldn't you, if you were the father, wouldn't your immediate fear be like, oh no, it's happening again? Because that would be my immediate fear. But he just acts like,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Maybe
he
he
acts
was
dumb
denied.
here. Yeah, in
He's
denial.
in
Yeah,
denial.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then White in hospital gets a call from Todd, his childhood friend, telling him that Black is dying, and if he wants to see him, he needs to come quickly. And I remember when I was watching this the first time, I was so excited to see Sing. I love Sing. I think he's a cutie patootie, and I to for me to see him as Todd, it was so funny when I watched this first episode. And this is not me, like I'm not spoiling things or anything like that. I'm just like telling like just I'm just wanting to say like this is how I felt when I watched this episode, because it's really funny because I had theories at this point, and my theories were based on like a hilarious reason. Well, I thought so anyway. And so
Mm-hmm.
basically when I was watching this first episode and I saw Sing, I had two thoughts. My first thought was he's in love with Black. And my
Mm.
second thought was he's probably evil. And I was basing these thoughts um on the like the fact that in every incarnation of Offgun, like universes where Sing is involved, he always wants Gun's character, and he's usually evil. And I
Well, I didn't know
basically
that.
you
I
did,
didn't know that. No,
yeah,
I didn't know that, but he was suspicious because like he is calling White out of the blue. My thoughts were it's either like a dumb plot point because it doesn't really make sense, or
yeah,
he has his hidden agenda as and the
yeah,
reasons
yeah.
why he needs this to happen because it doesn't really make sense.
Well,
Why
my
would he want
literally,
White to be involved all of a sudden? Like, oh look,
yeah,
your brother is dying.
my literal reason for this was like season 2 of Puppy Honey. Like honestly, like in that it's hilarious. He's like a little bit evil and he's obsessed with Gun's character. So it's like I was like, oh, he's good, you know, like he has to be in love with Black and he's totally going to be evil. And it was so funny because I remember, and this is not me, if you haven't seen this, is not me saying that Todd is evil, but it's so funny because there was all this discourse on social media, like pretty much from the get-go about like okay, Todd's evil. Like Todd's the bad guy, and Sing was like,
No,
wait, why is everybody
was there any doubt that it wasn't Todd?
it's so funny because like Sing was like, why is everyone suspecting me? And Teenage like, oh honey, you're just like you're really suspicious and awkward. But it was so funny because like my whole reasoning was based on a previous like in show interaction between Sing and Offgun. And it was so funny because when I rewatched this like the first 4 episodes with my mom, and my mom saw this, she was like, oh, he's evil and he's so in love with Black. And I was like, why? Mom's like, Puppy Honey. And I was like, yeah, right. And like the two things have nothing to do with one another, but I was convinced. It was so funny, like in that instance.
Yeah, he meets Todd and he tells him how he and Black went to the same school. Black in university, Black was dropping out of his courses and re-enrolling in the other classes, and he always argued with his mom and how Todd asked him to stay with him, and we don't know if he did that or not,
No,
but
I'm pretty sure he
because he
did
is
because we do sort of get an indication that for a while they lived together.
maybe.
Yeah,
And then, but lately he found a new gang
group of friends.
to hang out with, which sounds like something a jealous person would say, but
It
okay. And
certainly
they
sounds
seem
jealous
savage.
because the way he describes them is he says
Uh-huh.
they're savage. They seem
Mhm.
savage, and it's like, dude, like tell me how jealous are you? But it's like
So,
it's so funny. because he says, you know, about how he told Black not to trust the new friends, but like he didn't listen to him. So once again, he sounds a little bit bitter here. And he
Mhm.
says he doesn't know if his theory is correct, but he's
He
pretty
thinks,
sure that they're the
yeah,
reason that Black
they
is
have
hurt.
lifted.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
and
so
so
then he leads Black, and Black is black with bruises.
yeah, yeah, he's not
That was so funny, right?
he's not black
And
and
I'm
white. He's
sick.
black
Okay,
and blue.
I might be having a fever. I'm sick right now. Okay, I might be having a fever. I don't know. Like, this sounded funny when I wrote it.
Yeah, well, I was just I tried to be humorous as well. I was like, he's not black and white, he's black and blue. Anyway, um, it's so the other thing that White says to him, not White says, Todd says to him, which is very interesting, is he says something like, "Don't you guys talk? Like, haven't you kept in touch? Like,
Hmm.
shouldn't you know that, Todd? Shouldn't you know? Like, although I'm getting the impression at this point, I was getting the impression that Black is like a man of few words, and probably isn't overly uh the kind of person who would share his personal feelings
Hmm.
with like just anyone. So yeah, we see Black, as you said, who is very badly beaten up, who's in a coma, and I have to say they did a really good job on Gun's makeup here in this scene.
He
And
barely looks like God.
yeah, yeah, I know, right? And it's
Mhm.
the way they've got the bruises mottled on his skin, and that it's very realistic. Um,
Mhm.
so I was very impressed. And then we
Yeah,
have
good job.
Todd give White this blood-stained handkerchief, telling him
But
that it was Black's.
before that,
Oh,
White, White, White sees Black, and he instantly starts crying. And Todd
yeah,
is watching him. Todd is observing him from
yeah.
the
Well, he
distance.
can't. Yeah, he can't. It's like this mirror image of him is so now distorted. It's so
Hmm.
unrecognizable. Um, and that's it. It's if we link it back to the very beginning of this episode, he tells us that is a huge part of his identity. So he's not had this for so long. Like, in his mind, even if he wasn't consciously looking to like reconnect with Black, he would have thought about it. He would have had thoughts in the back of his mind what it would be like when they saw each other again, like to have that sameness together. And then this is not anything that he ever would have imagined or expected, and it's almost unrecognizable. He doesn't know
And
this
then,
person. This person
yeah,
is complete stranger to him.
and then Todd proceeds with the emotional manipulation by giving him the
He
hand.
proceeds with the emotional manipulation. But yeah, he does. He does. He gives him the bloodstained handkerchief. And the thing is, though,
And
he
said,
must know
"Oh,
this story.
he said you'd know what he wanted
He wants you
if I
to
give
do.
this to you."
But he
Yeah.
must know, like, Black must have told him this story and the significance of the handkerchief. So it implies a closeness between the two of them that maybe is
Maybe
unusual for Black.
Maybe he kind of tried to replace White with Black because there was emptiness
Because White
inside of
was
him
Todd.
when
Yeah,
White
yeah.
left. Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, because Todd would have been that thing that was left from when there was the two of them, because it
Hmm.
was actually the three of them. Um, Not the next best thing, but something that was really familiar and who would understand like their
Yeah.
connection in a way that other people wouldn't. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so he says to him, yeah, it was Black's wish for him to have it if anything ever happened to him, and he would know what to do with it. And this triggers a memory of White and Black, probably from around the time I reckon they were about to get separated, because Black
Hmm.
is very um he's very
Black.
adamant in this scene about um that White needs to be a certain way. Like, he's concerned for him. So
Yeah,
basically
it's like
we
he's
get
preparing him for a future where he will have to
he's he will
um
have to look after himself because Black
look.
is not
Yeah,
going to be
exactly.
there. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm assuming it's like within weeks or probably months of them being separated. And I feel like probably before like the parents split up or whatever, because clearly they were fighting, there was issues, there was like whatever. I feel like maybe Black would have noticed it probably before White. He probably tried to protect White from it a little bit, so he probably saw everything coming before it actually happened. And so anyways, we have this memory where basically Black had been beaten up by some thugs who had stolen White's wallet, and so Black gets it back for him. And while Black is kind of lecturing him, White uses his handkerchief to like tend to the blood on Black's face. And Black tells him, he needs to stand up for himself and not be taken advantage of. He tells him this line though that is such good writing, and it's basically, the line is, if you don't fight, you'll never win. And that's such an interesting idea, and I love that line. I think it's really great writing. But yeah, he says to him, promise me you'll fight, promise me, give me your word. And yeah, it's very much a scene where Black is worried about White having to protect himself, that he'll be taken advantage of if he's not around. And White promises he won't let anyone take advantage of him. He'll stand up for himself and fight back. And he also vows that if anyone hurts Black, then he won't let them get away free with it. And it's interesting because we see this version of White that he's become, and I don't necessarily. While he's not this timid person that lets people take advantage of him. I don't really know that he would embark on what he's about to do for himself. Like, this is something that he's empowered by this vow that he made to his brother. And then of course we go back to the hospital, and he vows again that he'll find who
I feel
hurt
like
them.
maybe he would fight for himself, but the only other person that he would fight for is his brother.
Yeah.
But his brother actually learned that there are other things, lots of things that he cared about that were worth fighting for, and White has not reached that point
Experience
yet.
that. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And so he and when I say when I said I didn't think White would fight for himself, I mean, like, I feel like White would stand up for himself, but I don't think, like, White would never have, like, broken laws or, like,
Well, he
whatever
has his
for
own
himself.
method.
Yeah,
It's not
he
that
would.
he transforms into that person. He does
No,
things his own way.
he
He's
does, but he
slower, but
he
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 goes in
definitely,
a
yeah,
different direction.
he definitely crosses lines though for his brother that I don't think he would cross for himself, if that makes any sense. But then he's
Mm.
given a lot more information as things develop. So, um, but then we have this scene, like, where it's like the present day, and they're in the hospital, and he uses their bloodstained hanky to wipe his tears. And I have to say that when I was watching this, I was like, that's unhygienic. Because
It
I'm
looks
just
like that
like,
tattoo was never watched since that time, since that fight, since
yeah,
that memory that we were shown.
yeah, I'm just like, it's so gross. Why are you doing it's but yeah, I couldn't help it. Like, I'm watching it and I'm just like, why? That's unhygienic. Anyway, so he White is smart. Like, White has made this decision. Like, he's got a plan. He's gonna do this thing. And he maps his brother's body. Because time changes us. Like, he maps it, the map it changes the map of our bodies. It's altered by our time and our experience. And it's really interesting because he's talking about, like, how they used to be identical, but now Black's body is so different to his, and it is. There's, besides all of the damage to it, there are tattoos, there are piercings, scars, whatever else. And we get this montage of White getting tattoos and piercings, and it's so funny because I remember seeing lots of, like, discourse and stuff about, like, how extreme this was, and, like, would you really do this, and all that sort of stuff. And it is extreme. Getting a permanent tattoo or something for something like this, it does seem really extreme. I mean, he's got money. He probably could have got, like, a bunch of, like, fake ones made up or something. But, like, he talks about how much he feels like Black has been through, like, a lot without him, and he has no idea. He says something like he has no idea how much pain he felt, and that's because he
Mhm.
wasn't there. He didn't experience it with him. The other thing is I feel like by doing these things to his body, the tattoo, the piercings, in a way, it's making them closer again, because it's helping him to understand not only what his brother went through, but also it's like getting them back to being more identical. So, because he has this thing where, like, he's used to having this other mirror image of himself, and this version of Black is so distorted and so separate from, like, who he is and everything. it's really, really interesting to me because like a lot of twins, especially identical ones, are really like, you get some who embrace the fact that they're identical and they dress the same, they do whatever, but it's more common for like one of them to be like a bit more out there or like whatever, because they want to be able to distinguish their identities, like their own self. Like they don't want to be lumped in with another person or like whatever, because that often happens. I mean, you know, it's like even my friends that I was talking about earlier, like we refer to them when we're talking about them as the twins. Like they get lumped together as like one identity almost, you know, and it's just one of those things that happens. But in this story it's interesting because they were apart and he didn't get to um like he didn't have a lifetime of being identical. He missed that. He missed the part of himself, like this identity of having someone who looks exactly like him. And so when he comes face to face again with Black, that's gone. So besides like taking on this disguise to get vengeance, I felt like in this moment as well, there's probably also a part of him that each bit he changes to look more like Black is helping him feel once again more like whole as a person, because even though these marks weren't his own, they helped to get that mirror image back in line with how he felt it should be.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really interesting because he absorbs Black's, I guess, persona in such a like in such an interesting way. Like he takes on the parts, he absorbs them so well. It's very interesting to me. I mean, it's part of Gunn being a very good actor, but also it's great characterization.
So we see this montage of him getting the piercings, the tattoos, of him getting dressed in the clothes that Black was wearing when he got beaten up.
Mm.
And he's doing it in front of the mirror when he's ready, he takes off his glasses, he looks into the mirror and he says, "Hi, Black." I
It's
love
so
this scene.
I do too, but once again, I can't help it. I'm like corrupted by pop culture. So so the other thing that happened to me when I was watching this scene, I also loved that scene, but my brain, because my brain is like, as I said, pop culture on crack, my brain went
Superman.
Clark yeah, Superman
Yeah,
Clark Kent moment.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'm someone who wears glasses and I've worn glasses since I was like little. And it's like, I remember I would take them off. You know, I would be at a slumber party or something growing up and like, I remember, oh my God, you look so different without your glasses. It's like, really? Really? Do I? And so I always thought that whole identity thing was really interesting. So, but I guess that's his way of like shedding the mantle of white and becoming Black. And I did like how he said, hello, Black. Um,
I mean, you do feel different when you're wearing a certain style of clothes, like if you dress differently than you normally do.
mm-mm,
Like, depending on the way you dress, you feel differently. So when a certain look actually makes you associate with a different person, that is a quite strong experience, I think, which makes you identify and see
yeah.
yourself differently and behave in a different way as well.
Yeah. I
And
mean, it
maybe
does
do
make,
stuff that you would not normally do if you felt
yeah.
more like yourself.
I think it does. I mean, it does make sense to me because I remember when I was in my early 20s or late teens, early 20s, I saw my eye specialist and he's like, I'm pretty sure you could go without your glasses, because I don't wear glasses because I have like, well, I don't know about, I can't speak to my vision right this moment, but growing up, I didn't wear glasses because I had vision issues. I had they call it a lazy eye. I don't know if you where your eye
Mm.
turns in, you have like one eye that wants to cross kind of thing. And also I'm long sighted in one eye, short sighted in the other. So it takes me a little bit longer to focus than the average person. But I have actually like I growing up I had like 20/20 vision. I had really good vision. Um but yeah, I always had glasses, and so I got to a point, I think, where my eyes were really, really healthy and strong and everything, and my eye specialist sort of said to me, I think with a few exercises we could probably get you to train your eyes so that when you looked at people, you focused at a point where it wouldn't turn in, so it wouldn't, you know, make you feel socially uncomfortable and all those sorts of things. But it was, there were factors to it. One, I would have to look past the person and not actually at the person, so they would be blurry to me while I was talking to them. So I didn't really like that. But also, I'm just so used to my glasses. Like I've had them since I was 2. So I get up in the morning, I put my glasses on. They are part of my identity, I guess. So I make the joke about Clark Kent, Superman, and all the rest of it, but I kind of do. I understand like how taking them off would make him feel different. I feel weird if I don't have them on. Like, you know, it's just the weight, just having the weight. It's not so much how I look, it's like the weight of them on my face. Like it's just physically part of who I am. So I do get like how shedding them would make him feel significantly different. um
Yeah.
and this is obviously, he's now got this image of what Black looked like before he got hurt as well, and so he hasn't had the opportunity to actually say hi Black, or like have a, so
Black,
it's
Black
very,
could probably look and how Black would probably feel.
exactly, yeah. And it once again, as you said, it's another mirror scene,
Yeah.
so yeah. And so Todd takes him to Black's apartment. And
Yeah.
he has keys, which I thought was interesting. But I mean, he could have just got them from like, his belongings at the hospital. But I also did think it was interesting that he had keys. And also
White asks, did Black leave him alone? And Todd said,
yeah,
I don't think he was dating anyone.
that's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Todd.
Yeah. And then we see White in Black's space, and it's really interesting. Like he inspects everything. And it's so
He's
like I
fascinated by his brother's
yes, and I
life.
kept having like it's funny because everyone teasing about like that, like he came across as shady and all the rest of it, but he had these moments where like I really couldn't get a read on him, like a holy,
Mm.
whether like I made jokes about him being evil, but like there's this moment when White is like kind of inspecting everything, and Todd is standing there looking on like fondly, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, like, oh, of course, he's their good friend and everything. And we see
Mm-hmm.
White, there's these two figurines, I think they're little dinosaurs or something, on the bedside table next to Black's bed. One with a B, I'm guessing, for Black, and one with a G for your guess is as good as
Something.
mine. I mean, we know obviously, but like if you don't know, well, you're
Who
in
could
for
it
a
be?
ride. If you were a part of the fandom when this was airing, it was very interesting. Um, but yeah, so there was all sorts of theories going on about who was the G, but we can get to that later on. And then we have
And
Todd,
also
who
the
says,
motorcycle, the miniature
"Oh yes, yeah,
motorcycle.
he has a motorcycle. That's correct. Yeah." And Todd says to White, "You should wear his clothes so not to be suspicious." Even the underwear. Now, Todd has a whole
Who will
very
check that? Who will check the panties? Who will do that? Why have that thought?
my
Why?
this is what happened to me. So I feel like I should warn our listeners that I am I have I'm a bad Bobby, because I was shipping Black Todd majorly in this while I was watching this drama. Like I was totally White and Sean as well, but I was like, give me Todd Black, because this little gremlin kept raising its head and getting bigger and bigger, because there was all these little things that kept happening. I already had my like theory that Singh's character always loves Gun's character, or is obsessed with Gun's character. But then Todd has this unnatural and strange fascination and knowledge about what kind of underwear Black wears, and I was just like,
Did you start shipping them in the beginning, or did
oh my
you,
god, yeah. Well,
or
I didn't.
did it
It wasn't so
happen
much.
when Black
It
appeared?
wasn't. It wasn't so much that I was shipping them, but I had a very strong suspicion
Uh-huh.
that something that they had a history, because
Mm,
or if not a history, there was like a one-sided thing going on, because as
mm.
I said, like Todd is Singh, as I said, this is a history. So I was basing it on off-gun Singh history, but then also there's
Mm.
this weird scene that we get here where he's like, as I said, has this unreasonably unnatural natural knowledge of what kind of underpants his like friend wears, um, which I thought was interesting, and he also makes a joke about like White and
The
Black having
styles.
the same size, and basically
Mm.
the same equipment and everything, which was, and there's innuendo. It's not like
Package.
it didn't feel like yeah, it didn't feel like a joke between friends. It felt more like innuendo. And that was like, I'm like, this little Todd Black gremlin started growing in this moment. I
Mm.
wasn't shipping, but I was just like, this is really sus. And so Todd using White's face to unlock Black's phone just made me laugh, because even with identical
Yeah.
twins, there'd be slight differences. I don't know how good like the AI type stuff like that is on noticing things like that, but I always think that stuff like that is funny. And then he went on to basically show White photos of the gang explaining who they are. So he seemed to, once again, this is the other thing that made me suspicious of Todd, is he's like, I don't know anything about these people, but they seem savage, they're like whatever, blah blah, and then he's like, okay, so this person is this person, this person. He suddenly knows a lot about them. Or at least
Mm.
he knows their names and their majors. I'm like, Todd, did you have them investigated? I mean, it's a rich boy kind of thing to do. Like, I assume, without knowing anything at this point, once again, I assumed that he was a rich boy because um it's
Because of
implied,
the
and
way he carries himself. Yeah, there's
yeah,
a way he carries himself.
there's that, but also like they were friends, and there was, it's implied that Black and White come from money as well. So it's
Hmm.
just, it's one of those things where I just assumed, um
Hmm.
but so yeah, he gives the explanation about Graham, Yoke, the art student, Sean, the political science student, and we all cheered when Sean appeared. I know I did. I was like, oh, yay! And he's like,
I knew
very,
nothing. I was like, okay,
yeah.
what's next? This seems fun.
Well, it was so funny because like um I remember the original pilot trailer, and then of course we got the trailer for the actual show, and I remember being super excited, couldn't wait, all the rest of it. And I'm watching it. And I remember watching this very first, I think it was the first episode. And I went and this was the other reason why I made my mum watch the show. Because I went out and I was just like, like, it's really interesting. It's like, it's definitely more sort of, drama, politically based, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm not really sure how the BL side of it's going to fit in, and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, but like this thing just happened with like Sean and White and OffGun. Oh my God, I died. She's just like, don't tell me anything. I'm like, are you serious right now? I need to dump to somebody. So, but it was really funny. I was like, yeah, I cheered. So it's funny because you're like, I didn't know anything. It's interesting because there's a scene coming up, I believe, either in the next bit or the following bit, where between Sean and White. And I'm curious to know, like, what your reaction was as you watched it and what your reaction is now as a Bobby. Because I feel like they're probably slightly different. They might not be, but mine was like, I was like, when I watched it. But yeah, I like how he says to him, like, Todd says to him, they're all very dangerous. You must look after yourself. So he seems concerned for White. Like, he has affection still from him, from their childhood friendship. Um, and then he starts talking about how he thinks they're doing like illegal business. And once again, then I started also to think, like, he's not a bad guy. Look at him. He's like, because he says to White, if you're scared, you should back out now. Like, you shouldn't do this if you don't think you can do it. You might get caught, blah, blah, blah. So he seems concerned for White. So I'm like, oh, Todd's a good guy. So it's really funny because I kept wavering between, oh my God, he's so
Mm.
evil, and oh my God, look, he's the sweet best friend. And I really didn't. I was like, I
With
don't know.
best friends? Really?
No, not
With
no, but
best friends?
not best friend, but childhood friend. Childhood friend, I meant to say. Um,
He is
and
kind of devious.
yeah, he is. He comes across as devious and scheming. He does, but like, and then he would have, like, as I said, he has a facial expression of fondness when he's watching White, like, I guess, reconnect with his brother, which is weird because it's basically his brother's belongings and not his brother. But like, that also could just be because he has a fondness for Black that we're not getting to see properly at this point in time. But yeah,
Maybe
as I
that
said,
like they're jumping right back into that dynamic of teasing teen boys, like being
yeah,
all haha, look, I'm gonna whatever,
yeah, well, that's right. And it's interesting because it's funny too. White, this is another example of White's innocence, because if you get the impression that like if Black hadn't spoken to Todd for years and Todd suddenly rang him up and was like, oh, blah blah blah, this about White, like Black would not trust him. But
Mm.
White is like, White is just like, oh, he's my childhood friend, and
If
he
Black
takes
trusts
him.
him, then I can
I
trust
trust
him.
him. Yeah, he takes him at his word. You know, like he has the handkerchief. He knows about the vow. He seems concerned for me. He wants to help. Like it's interesting because it's like the innocence of White. You know,
It's like,
and once again, I'm not saying whether Todd's bad or not, but like the fact that White doesn't even suspect that he might be bad, because I would be suspicious of everybody. Like, you don't know these people anymore. Like, you know, you knew him when he was like what, 13 or 11 or however old they were meant to be. Like, you don't know this guy. Like, why are you acting like he was like yesterday that you were like hanging out at the pool? It's interesting to me, but that I think that's like a bit of an insight into who White is at the beginning of this story.
and how eager he is to be closer to Black
Yeah,
again.
that's right. Yeah, like it's like you mentioned that maybe White was close with Todd because he met sorry, that Black was close with Todd because he missed White. You're probably nailing it too in this instance, that Todd is a connection to Black. Like, if he can't talk to Black, well, Todd is telling him, I know him. Like, I know, I know who his friends were.
Mhm.
I know how he lived. We spent time together. Like, this is a connection that he doesn't have, that he can experience through Todd. So yeah, it's interesting and makes sense why he trusts him. But like, I'm a huge skeptic. I'd be like, I don't trust you. give me reasons why I should trust you.
This is the end of part one of our reaction slash critical discussion to episode one of Not Me. The next part will be posted soon. Follow us on Tumblr, on Twitter, on Spotify, interact with us.
Thank you for hanging out with us. Bye.
Bye!